Tell me your soldier story. If you're an airman, Coast Guardsman, Marine, or sailor, tell me your story. We're all ears to learn from your journey. What worked in your favor? What trappings should we avoid? Me, I share this list of 10 things in hopes that you'll avoid the mistakes that I made that brought me to the realization of their value. Number 1, a human receives 2 educations, the one given to them and the one they give themselves. Demand the best of both. Number 2, everything worth having in life is free. Be careful of those who will monetize your love, your health, and your knowledge. Number 3, love, that's the answer. Translating the question so all can understand, that's your problem. Number 4, health is a trinity of mind, body, and spirit, and wealth is the karma of what you do with them. Pursuing the monetized while neglecting the free things in life will leave you poor, sick, and lonely. Number 5, knowledge, it's power, and with power comes great responsibility. Number 6, everything in life is a mirror. Look for beauty, and beauty is what you'll find. Look for flaws, surely flaws are what you will find, so look long and look deep. Number 7, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. The beholder is you. So again, look long and look deep. Number 8, paying it forward, it's as important as saving for a rainy day, because the investment you make in others, it pays in perpetuity. Number 9, truth, facts, and principles are constants that change, so never be so tied to constants that you can't change. And number 10, the list of life is never complete. Start making a list, cross things off, celebrate, and then get back to making another list. The key is never skipping the celebration. This month, Team Army's back, dropping knowledge from the foxhole. Take a listen. I'd like to welcome Colonel Khalid B. Shabazz, chaplain to the 3rd Lieutenant. Colonel Shabazz is a 1992 graduate of Jarvis Christian College with a Bachelor's of Science in Biology. He holds a Master's of Interfaith Action from Claremont University, a Master's of Comparative Religion from Hartford Seminary, a Master's of Philosophy and Ethics from Duquesne University, a Master's of Higher Education Leadership from Trident University International, and a Master's in Strategic Studies from the Army War College. Chaplain Shabazz has a Doctorate of Ministry from North Texas Theological Seminary. He received his PhD in Higher Education Administration from Trident University International in 2008, and Dr. Shabazz is a member of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Colonel Shabazz's military assignments include Brigade Chaplain of the 1st Cavalry Division, Fort Hood, Texas, AFN Radio and Stratcom Officer in Heidelberg, Germany, U.S. Army Ethics Instructor at the Captain's Career Course at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and Senior Advisor to the Commanding General on all religious affairs at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Currently, Colonel Shabazz serves as the Command Chaplain at U.S. Army Central Command. Wow, there's so much. And I'm reading most of your bio from a book, but there's so much that isn't in this book, sir.
Yeah, that book is 2008 when I was struggling with my own self-esteem. So I wrote a book and researched that for about 5 years. Since that time, I've gotten another PhD and 3 more master's degrees. So
I'm running off the page with this bio. So, Chaplain, let's start with, tell me your soldier story.
My soldier story, I came in the Army in 1991, reeling off a horrific life. I mean, you can't even believe some of the stuff that I'm probably going to tell you. So I want to back up to that before you get to the soldier stuff, and then you can understand the traumatic things that happened to me as a soldier. So molested at 10 years old. Because of the molestation, really had really poor self-esteem. So a special education in the 8th grade, failed the 9th grade, and then failed the 12th grade. Okay, so I got to go to college because, I'm 6'5", 265 pounds. So I went to college to play sports, but I still was dealing with a lot of, traumatic stuff. Talk about PTSD. It was a traumatic event for me as a young boy getting molested. So went to college, was thrown in jail a couple of times for fighting and disorderly conduct. So I was expelled from school. So what do African Americans do as a last resort? Sometimes as a first resort, we go to the Army, right? So I went to the Army to get some discipline. However, joined in 1991. Before 1992 happened, came in, I had my second Article 15 chapter paperwork in hand. I'm getting ready to go out the door. And honestly, wife and 2 kids, had never really achieved anything besides bouncing a basketball or sports. So I decided, unfortunately, I was going to kill myself because they deserved somebody better. I was probably about an hour away from doing that, and Sergeant Major came over and offered me an olive branch to work for him and to be his driver, and he was going to coach and mentor me to be a man first, and then, hopefully work out to be a soldier. Well, in that time where he was building me to be a man and a soldier, I was in field artillery, as we just talked about it. And in that time, I was sitting on my track, 109 howitzer, and I saw off in the distance, this chaplain dude. I was like, oh my God, please, I don't want that dude to come and talk to me. I got enough problems in my life. Please, God, please. And as God would have it, he came over to talk to me, and he ministered to me for about an hour. And he said, you're a very intelligent guy. You're passionate about people. Why don't you become a chaplain? And I kind of looked at him like, as the old saying, bless his heart, because he don't know how bad I am. But as that seed permeated, about 3 years later, I decided to come into the chaplaincy. And from that time, 1997 till now, it's just my life exponentially has taken off. As you said in the introduction, I went to get a master's degree in divinity, and then I still felt inadequate. So I went to get, a couple of more master's degrees, the doctorate degree. And I was, in this officer realm, right? But you're still the chaplain. So the chaplain is always kind of left out, So the old problems with self-esteem was coming back. And I'm like, I'm not really on the team. They only call me when somebody's in trouble, when somebody needs to, be counseled. I'm not really a part of the team. I'm not part of the structure. So I was going into a tailspin. So this time, as a older person, I decided to research on self-esteem. And so that book that you have in your hand is 5 years of research about self-esteem. And so after I garnered some self-esteem, I decided to go back to school and get another doctorate and 2 more master's degrees, just trying to build my self-worth. And so that in itself is my story of my soldier story.
That's amazing. And there's a lot there.
Yes.
I think the way we always frame it is there's a lot there to unpack. Right, Chaplain?
Yes, that is. Yes.
So I often refer to the NCO officer relationship as 2 halves of a whole. And when you're in command with the XO, a holy trinity. And I never interjected into that the chaplain that is always a step or 2 behind the commander.
Right.
What is the value of the chaplain, the role, the advisement to every commander?
Well, I think what commanders have to realize is every chaplain in that organization is probably the most educated person in that command. Every chaplain in the Army has to have the minimum of a master's degree. Okay, so by not incorporating the chaplain, and I'm not saying the chaplain can stop all suicides, but at least he or she is a preventative measure. But the chaplain has been minimized. I liken the chaplain to a kicker on a football team. Nobody ever pays attention to him or her until it's the last second and they need to kick the ball through the uprights. And if he makes it, he's a hero. If he doesn't, the chaplain is worthless, right? Chaplains come in older, so we may not be as good in PT as the young, lieutenant or captain. So again, another part of being marginalized. If the commander could sit down and actually tap into the chaplain's brain, man, what an asset he could be for that command.
I haven't had the luxury of commanding yet, but I hope to in the future. As a matter of fact, We were talking about my next assignment off the record between me and you. Nobody else has to know. Field artillery.
Yes.
I'm a little taken back. I am always up for a challenge, and everyone that knows me knows that I go hard. But I want people to like me. I want to come into a situation and be and feel welcomed. So I'm going to ask you to be a mentor, because I know you have quite a bit of experience as a Mustang going from enlisted to an officer in field artillery.
Yes.
So how does field artillery fight?
Yeah, field artillery, I won't say alphas, but they're definitely alpha minuses. And field artillery.
Wait. Alpha minus, please elaborate.
Yeah, alpha minus. You got your special forces guys, you got your infantry bubbas. They are absolutely alpha dogs plus machismo. So field artillery is just a little step down from that, right? They are competent in what they do, but they're still physical people, right? And you can be mildly competent, but you have to be physical, right? You know, this is the Army. This is the unwritten rule in the Army. So you can go in there as an outsider, you know, like I did as a chaplain, because I was field artillery before, but I went in as a chaplain, and I was a big physical dude. Get out after, do PT. You know, even if you're not the fastest person or the best person, you're out there sweating and grinding. And you're not complaining, as we say. They always say, give me some cheese with that wine. You know, if you're a whiner, no matter what the situation, and nobody knows this, but I'm a little prissy, right? I like to be a little clean, but in the field, I just bared it out, you know. And when I got back home, I was like, oh my God, I never want to go out there again. But, you know, when you're dealing with the field artillery, you know, there's no room for whining out there. They'll push you aside, you know, honestly. So you just suck it up, as we say in the Army, and go on with your life, go back home, and, you know, cry about it when you're at home.
I hear you. The message is getting through, Chaplain. Yeah. Let's do this. What's the advice? New officer coming into a unit, staff section. Get my mind right.
You're coming into a new unit. It is super important that you understand who you are. And what I mean by that is you have to be authentic to yourself. Let's unpack that. Like, I know for myself, I have a learning disability. So being authentic to myself, I can't go around, you know, if the other officer reads a book and it takes him 30 minutes, I can't get all down on myself because it's going to take me 4 hours and I got to read it over and over and over again so I can understand it. I got to be authentically me and say, okay, he's a superstar. He's a superstar. I'm going to have to go home and study this thing, tab this thing, and understand who I am. So the next day I could be confident, right? Understanding who you are authentically is, it's like in field artillery units. And this has nothing to do with morality. They're big drinkers, right? If you don't drink, don't compromise yourself to be one of the folks. I used to sit with them while they drank. I used to sit with them while they did big cigars. Hey, Chap, man, come on, man. You one of the guys, man. You know. So anyway, I never compromised that. Hey, I love you guys. Let me hang out with you guys, but I'm not doing that. So my point to that is, if you don't understand who you are, those in any profession, they'll eat you alive. And you're depressed, and you're lonely, and then you're so compromised, but you compromise and you're lonely because you're inauthentic to yourself. When you understand who you are, you can walk in there as an African-American woman and say, this is who I am. I'm not Americana. I don't do 10,000 push-ups because I'm trying to be one of the guys. I'm going to do my best and be who I am. And lastly, you guys know more than me. Please teach me. Let me be humble enough to receive the instruction you're going to get. Culturally, we don't want people to think that we're dumb. So we miss a lot of information by not being humble enough. That's what humble is. We miss a lot of information that let somebody teach us, even if they're the same grade as you, to let them teach you so you'll be confident enough to stand before your commander or your troops when it's time to show that you're worthy of the position. And so I've had people who were even the same grade as me. I call other colonels now, like, hey, man, I don't understand A, B, C, and D. And they probably on the other end of the phone like, God, he's calling me again, right? But I understand who I am, and I need the information, and I need to be confident. So, you got to be humble enough to do that.
I think that's important because everybody has talent, everyone has value, and everyone has something to contribute to the fight. And it may take a little longer for you to identify what your tool or what your contribution is. And it's okay to wait. It's okay to take from the table while everyone has their contribution out for the taking. And when that opportunity comes for you to contribute, it'll be when, where, and basically how they need it.
Yeah, well, one of the things Albert Einstein said, which is phenomenal, he said everybody is a genius, right? But you got to know what you're a genius in. Like LeBron James can't come as great as he is as a basketball player. He can't come and be an imam right now because he hadn't been trained. So I'm greater than him in that sense. I can't go out tomorrow and play against the Houston Rockets and try to beat him. That's his field. That's who he is. So that's what I'm talking about, going to this principle of authenticity. Once you understand who you are, I don't walk around with bad self-esteem because I'm not a commander. I can't do what commanders do. I'm not a commander. I've not been trained in that, right? So I don't go out and give detailed battle plans and send people different courses of action on the battlefield. That's not who I am. I'm a chaplain. I do religious support plans. I take care of people. I do services. I'm good with that, right? Because that's who I am. And so a lot of people just have a lot of self-worth problems because they want to be somebody other than who they are.
So when a warrior comes to mind, whether that's a sailor, soldier, Marine, airman, even Coast Guardsman, most people don't think warrior equates to chaplain.
Right.
The mental picture the average person gets of a chaplain is meek, godly, man, quiet. That's not you.
That's not me, because one of the things I wanted to do is transform the position of the chaplain into a warrior. When you read in all of the scriptures, whether Bible, Quran, or Torah, the prophets were not meek in the sense of, I'm just going around, praying for everybody. Sometimes they had to be very strong, super intelligent, and very wise people. And in the Army, we call it leading from the front. I just want to be meek and humble. Meek and humble doesn't mean being a trailer in the rear. Meek and humble is sometimes using your resources to get people where you are. And to get people where you are, you have to be out front. And so when you see me on the treadmill and, lifting weights, that's where my soldiers are. And so my soldiers absolutely love me, right? Because they can identify with me because I'm in there sweating. That's a field artillery thing. I'm in there sweating and running with them, lifting weights, running, and they can identify with that. So when they have problems, they'll come to me. Unfortunately, on the other side of that, if you just got some holy guy, holy gal, sitting in the church, mosque, or synagogue and saying, this is what God thinks. They like, man, I'm not going to that dude. I'm telling you, they're not coming, And so for me, I wanted to be confident enough to change the paradigm. I get a lot of flack for it, but I know what's best for my soldiers because they come to me, and I mentor a lot of people who are not chaplains, and for that reason, because I'm a physical person and kind of out front leading the pack.
And I think that may not be the only way. It's definitely a way.
It's a way.
It is a way. So you talked about your faith. Yes. And I know just from previous conversation that hasn't been an easy road for you. How do you reconcile the perception of your faith and your uniform?
Yeah, for me, my job is, I shouldn't say my job. My life mission is to meet people where they're at. So I never lead a conversation or leave a conversation with my religion because religion is personal. What I want to do for people who come to me, I want you to leave stronger when you leave me than when you come to me. One of the great things about me is, I was a Christian pastor and now I'm an imam. So I have a doctorate in both fields. So when you come to me, we can talk about your scripture, what your scripture says about being strong, what your scripture says about having faith, what your scripture talks about as far as an enduring test, right? I think that gives me a sizable advantage when I'm dealing with all people, because at the end of the day, I care about you. I may not believe what you believe, but I believe in you. And I think that's most important. I think a lot of people who are religious, I think we're a little bit too arrogant to think that we know everything and a person can only communicate with you if they believe what you believe. I think that's absolutely wrong.
Well, one of the things that I open the podcast with is truth, facts, and principles are constants that change. Never be so tied to constants that you can't change. I actually was raised in the Department of Defense school system, DOD school system. And I remember when Pluto was a planet. And now they're telling us it's something else. And as I get older, more wise, I'm like you. And coming into new situations where I'm about to enter a new unit, oh, here comes this junior captain. And I love to learn. And I love to learn from others because I believe that you don't have to make all the mistakes. You don't have to put all the points on the board.
Absolutely not. There's an old saying that smart people make mistakes and learn from them. Intelligent people look at the mistakes of others and don't make them.
It'll save you a lot of gray hair. It'll save you a lot of stress.
That's right.
So you talked about having 2 Article 15s. You talked about having 2 children. And I know just from your social media that your wife is a huge supporter. Talk to me about relationships, especially that relationship with those so close to you and the importance of that.
Yeah, relationships are everything. They're everything to me because I started out with such a traumatic situation where relationships were almost non-existent and people didn't necessarily show love. So one of the things I wanted to do when I changed my life around, and I know most people have a hard problem with this, my definition of a perfect marriage is 2 imperfect people who refuse to give up on each other, right? And so as a husband, my job is to be tender and care for my wife. Some guys would probably throw up, but I don't criticize my wife. I don't. She gets so much flack from the world for being a woman. Positions are devalued. Her intellect is always challenged. I want to provide a source of peace for her when she comes home. I want to cater to her. I want to serve her and do everything I can for her. So in relationships, I think you have to do what the person needs, right? It shouldn't be about you. And don't get me wrong, I had to learn from that. Same thing for my children. I serve my children. They need something. They don't have to have a long speech for me. Dad, I need $300. Okay, I'm going to give it to you. Dad, I need this for this. Okay, I'm going to give it to you. It's amazing to me how nice we are to others, right? But our own, we get these long speeches, such disappointing in you, why you didn't do this. But others people don't get those type of speeches. So for me, I wanted to change the paradigm and be soft and gentle with my children. Now they know I'm a strong man, but they understand that my dad is going to support me if I'm doing the right thing. I'm not going to support them if they're doing the wrong thing. But if they're doing the right thing, I'm going to support them. So they never have to worry about me telling them no on things that they need, right? So I think they absolutely love me for that. And they don't abuse that because they know I'm not a pushover, but I am a person that is absolutely 100% in that corner for anything that they need. I didn't have that growing up, and so I provide that for them.
There's a couple of things that you said that really resonate with me, and it makes me think about those men or women that have children or have a spouse that wants or even needs, but they don't have to give, and how that can hurt, especially if they want to give. And I think just trying to protect themselves may say, no, I'm not going to give it to you. But what may be happening behind the scenes is they don't have to give.
Right.
What that can do to the esteem.
Of course. And I think our job, love can't throw in the shade. I think our job as partners, right, wherever your spouse is or any relationship that you're in, is to increase that person's self-esteem, to increase that person's self-worth. I think sometimes we have such poor self-worth, we try to diminish that person to keep a hold on them, to control them. But why don't we try the other side of that? Let me give 1,000% to this person. Let me love this person how they should be loved. And maybe if I do that, they'll love themselves enough to give me that type of love back. But I think at least what I've found in 28 years of counseling and marriage, people are so afraid to do that because they're afraid the person's going to leave, right? If the person leaves, my philosophy is, hey, listen, I gave 110%. Once you walk out that door, don't come back. I'll give somebody else my love because you weren't worthy of that. And that's the strong part of me. But the tender part of me is I'm going to give you everything that I can to make sure that you're happy because you got enough to deal with outside of me, right? And so let me make your house a source of peace for you.
Tell you what, Chaplain, full bird colonel too. There are some women, some female soldiers that I'm sure are shaking their head right now.
I'm sure.
So I don't know how true this is. Everything you see on Facebook can't be true, right? There was a posting, female officer posted and said that Black female officers have the lowest suicide. I don't know how true that is, but I know coming up on some opportunities to create awareness for suicide prevention, and you yourself have some speaking engagements in the near future. What's the message that you're sending that isn't just words on a paper in front of a mic at a podium, but the message that you really want to get through?
The message for me is being authentic to who you are. Now, you have to find out who that is. Everybody say, I'm just doing me. And my question always is, well, who are you, right? So my message is always, it's like the book you have in your hand is about self-esteem. If you never had self-esteem, you don't have self-awareness. If you don't have what we call in the academic world locus of control, which means autonomy over you, you don't even know who you are, so you can't be who you're supposed to be. So what I do is I show people the realm of possibility, right? I'm just a guy who was in special education in the 8th grade, who is now full colonel, with 2 doctorate degrees, 5 master's degrees, author of 4 books, and still out here grinding. I'm showing them, I'm just a regular guy. It's nothing special about me, but my work ethic and my goals. So often I tell the young guys that I'm talking to, and this applies to everybody. I said, I can bet you, I don't even know you. I can bet you waste at least 6 hours a day. At least, right? Because they always say, hey, when do you sleep? As a matter of fact, I had a conversation with a general officer, and he asked me, he said, when do you sleep with all that education? I sleep as much as anybody else. But those 6 or 7 hours that you're wasting, I'm probably working, right, throughout the day, right? Guys watching basketball games, people are doing all kind of stuff. I said, this is my proposition. If I can take 3 of those hours that most people waste of the 6 hours, my life would exponentially change. And that's what I did. So when people are watching, the basketball game, I'm probably typing a paper, right? Just because if I'm dreaming, just think about this. I'm watching people in the NBA who have achieved their lifelong dreams. So it is cognitive dissonance for me, just for me, to watch people achieve their dreams and I have not. So I would think that an intelligent person would say, hey, great, they're achieving their dreams. Let me go out while they're achieving their dreams, living their dreams. Let me go out and achieve mine. So that's the approach I took to life in the last 25 years. And I've been in school for 25 years straight.
With no sign of stopping, right?
No sign of stopping.
You've made it to the top of the mountain. You have your doctorate.
Yes.
Academia is a culture in itself. And I know you said that you advise those that are in pursuit of a PhD or even a master's degree. What do you say to that young soldier that comes in and says, I have these benefits, I want to go to school, I just want to knock it out to get points for promotion, or I need to finish it up so I can fulfill my commissioning obligation? What do you advise when deciding how you pursue higher education, not just the fact that you should?
Well, I have a saying, if your ship don't come in, swim out to meet it. Whatever starts you on that path for higher education, do it. It doesn't matter the reason, right? I didn't start out to get a doctorate degree. I actually thought I was too dumb to get a doctorate degree. But as I went through the process, I realized it's nothing but rote memory, right? It is. It's just rote memory. You look at a piece of paper and you write down what's on the piece of paper and somebody gives you a grade. But my point, whatever you start out to do, whatever your reasons are behind that, just start off. I mean, you don't know where to lead you. I had no plans on being a college professor. Honestly, I had no plans on being a colonel in the Army. I had no plans on being a chaplain. I was just working within my purpose, and those things came out.
So I know with the constraints and the pandemic, I've kind of deviated to an alternate course of action with my education. But part of the mission of this podcast is to expose those who are contemplating higher education to continue along the path and look for opportunities that aren't right in front of them, that aren't immediately in the education center on a poster, but to seek opportunities that put them in environments that prepare them for that transition, whether that be just you're at the end of your time of service, or even if you're about to retire, because the mindset that soldiers have, the mindset that service members have, serve the private sector so well, but you hit those glass ceilings because of educational limits. So that I'm gonna get off my soapbox and just ask you, what's next for you? Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
Well, as amazing as that question is, for me, my goal is to be a college president, right? That has always been my goal in the last 10 years. However, I've been moving and been so fast up the ranks in the military. Only God knows what will happen next for me in the next 5 years, right? So if I have to say, I want to be a college president at a HBCU, because when I went into Jarvis Christian College as a young 18-year-old, I didn't have an SAT, I didn't have an ACT, I had a 1.99 grade point average, and they accepted me on remedial status. So I want to give back to institutions like that. When I went back there to speak, it's amazing. A guy who was expelled from the school come back with, mounds of education and mounds of accomplishment, but they gave me a chance. So it would almost be hypocritical for me, my mind, not to go back there and serve in that capacity to help those young kids who were just like myself. Totally lost, had no clue about life or anything. They accepted me, and I'm here today because of that.
I love that. And that's mission and that's purpose.
Yes.
That is mission and purpose. Wow. So are you tied to Jarvis? I think that's the $1 million question, because you never know who's going to hear this interview, sir.
Yeah, I'm not tied to Jarvis. I've been breaking a lot of barriers in my life, but to go back, it would be more problematic for them than to me, because I'm an Islamic dude, and somehow, stereotypically, they would say, oh, well, we can't let an Islamic dude be the head of Jarvis Christian College, right? So, because it's a privately owned institution. I think I could be a great resource for them. I would be their biggest cheerleader, but they have to get over those barriers, just like the Army had to get over the barriers of, okay, we got a Muslim chaplain, who's going to listen to him, who's going to talk to him. The Army had to get over that. And so now I'm serving in a 3-star command. It's never been done before. It was the first Muslim division chaplain, first colonel in the United States Army history, where all the service history has never had my rank. So I think if the school can get over themselves of what they think of me as opposed to what they see of me, then I could do it. And I would be tied to Jarvis because, I love Jarvis College, Jarvis Christian College.
So while I have you, I'll ask you this last question. What's the value proposition? You have extensive experience in the Christian faith. You practice and currently minister as an imam in the Islamic faith. Why should a sailor, why should a commander seek out guidance from you or another imam if they want to communicate or bridge culturally? Where's the value?
The value is I can get into places they can't get into. One of the great things about being an imam, an American imam, with the culture of Christianity on my side, I can talk to the commanders. And like last year, I met the king of Kuwait and all of the emissaries and all the guys from the embassies. And I can speak the language. We're not just talking about Arabic. I can speak the cultural language of just the simple greeting of Assalamu alaikum, or, talking about some of the nuances in the Islamic community that the commander can't speak because the commander doesn't even know about those things. So, everything in my life, or probably in yours, I see it as a holistic thing. It's about interpersonal relationships. Years of deals may sit on the cabinet, but you have a guy like me who comes in. Like these, I gotta be honest with you. It was frightening because, there's so much tension in the room. You could feel it before I came in there. And then I come in, you got the king of Kuwait. And I said, Assalamu alaikum, how are you? Right? And he was like, yes, my son. Right? So the tension was broken. You have this American dude who's an imam, who's a full-bird colonel in the United States Army. And so it's funny, the king of Kuwait, he says to me, you look just like my son. I have to show you a picture. And I said, sir, if I was really your son, why don't you leave me some inheritance? So, yeah, but those relationships make things easier. From the Islamic side, I can serve as a huge asset. And then to my Christian brothers and sisters, I go and speak at churches all the time, and I speak the language of the Christian. And so I can bridge the gap. I wrote a book on Islam and Christianity, a roadmap of peace, of the similarities between Islam and Christianity. And then, I've written books with Christian authors, so I'm just a guy in the middle of the road trying to balance these two worlds for people. And I've been fortunate to be able to do that.
Well, Chaplain, thank you. Thank you so much for your time, sir. Colonel Khalid Shabazz, Chaplain, thank you for joining us here on the Third Lieutenant.
Oh, thank you. See you on the road. See you on Facebook.
Colonel Shabazz, thank you for sharing. I believe your message will be received, Chaplain. And thank you for listening. If you want to reach out, ping me on Twitter at 3LT Strickland. That's at 3LT Strickland. Next month, join me as we hear the story of another service member right here on the Third Lieutenant. This message has been brought to you by A Man's Cave, Spa for Men pop-up. If you're experiencing a crisis or have a friend or family member in crisis, call 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255. Press the number 1 for the military crisis line, or you can text 838-255. I say again, 838-255. From our friends at A Man's Cave, Spa for Men pop-up. Until next time, stay balanced and walk in peace.